today we will cover like topics from the last week. We'll probably talk about El Salvador, Coinbase, from the interesting stuff. We'll probably also cover the launch of Yokai Swap on our layer 2 testnet. So yeah, let's just wait a few seconds or a few minutes for the rest of the speakers to join. By the way, Luis, did anything interesting come up from your side in terms of like working with community or like in general? I think you had some questions about our layer 2 that you're trying to
Oh yeah. Okay.
figure out.
If we want to get into that, I think that's really great material. Let me just let me shoot. Let me shoot the tweet off, just inviting more people to join and inviting some of the people from Telegram to join in too, because I think that the stuff around layer two, beginning like I guess like part of the reasoning why God Woken was highly centralized at first, and like the road to decentralization is something that's in a lot of people's minds because it ties into like a larger picture of just like recent hacks, putting too much trust in a few players, and I think like there's concerns around that, and rightly so, right? Here, Jordan's here. Let me inviting Jordan.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that we're still on this path, that we have a clear way forward, but there's still some development going on our layer 2. So we prioritize a launch time, but obviously we have some ways to figure out for like decentralizing the sequencer, etc., etc.
Right. Just give me 1 second here.
All right, so maybe let's start with the first topic. So I think that the biggest news from the previous week. Okay, so maybe let's start from the biggest Nervos news this week. I mean, there's a couple, right? So first we have maybe Yokai Swap launch on our layer 2. There's a guide on Reddit, how on Nervos Network Reddit, how you can get started with it, how to use it. It's been also open sourced. So I think it's first application that's running on Nervos layer 2. And yeah, it's been open sourced. So tomorrow we are starting a second part of Gitcoin hackathon. So if someone would like to build something, by the way, the theme is DeFi, they can take a look at Yokai Swap. Do you guys have some thoughts about Yokai Swap launch?
So currently, what tokens can be swapped on Yokai Swap? Do you know?
So I'm not exactly sure which tokens you can swap on Yokai.
Well, I just opened up the page here, and I like the most interesting one that I saw, and it kind of caught me with surprise, is like the Sol USDT transfer, and I'm not sure if that's just like a testnet uh feature or if it's something that is going to be supported in mainnet. But like I think one of the most frustrating things that I've run into like in the Sol ecosystem is being able to like get a hold of some Sol without having to go through centralized exchanges, right? So if I have some CKB, I could begin to like transact with either the ETH ecosystem or, from what I see here, the Sol ecosystem without having to go through these decentralized routes.
Yeah, I think also this experience that you can just go to Yokai Swap or to some other applications that will be coming on Nervos Layer 2, and you can just click swap and it will automatically take tokens, for example, from Ethereum chain and other tokens on your account from, I don't know, Cardano chain, for example, and we'll be able to swap them without you even knowing that you are going through multiple chains. I think this will be the best experience. I'm not sure if we are there yet, but it's definitely something we are aiming for, and we are getting closer with this Yokai Swap launch.
So another benefit I see of this too, right? So it's going to be working on ETH by ForceBridge as well, which will sort of allow ERC20 tokens to be able to be exchanged. So that opens up like a whole lot of different things because there's just so many ERC20 tokens out there.
Yep, exactly. Right now, the Force Bridge is functioning between Rinkebai and Agron testnet on Nervos, but yeah, we are still waiting for mainnet launch. But yeah, definitely the amount of possibilities is huge, and connecting CKB ecosystem with Ethereum ERC20 tokens. That'll be amazing.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hey guys.
Yeah, so you guys are missing one of the biggest things that the community has been asking about forever, though, is when will we have the option to do various farming things? And so, yes, Yokai Swap has farming. Looks like they're still setting some of it up here, but the first people who always get into these things make huge returns. Like I see right now, just listed on the farms page, it's like 1,644% interest. Now that never holds up, of course. As more people enter the system, it starts to go down. But like that'll be what it is probably at launch. So I mean, just like Daniel was saying, not quite launched yet, but those opportunities that everybody's been asking for, they're coming up pretty soon.
Will, I think you also wanted to say something.
Yeah, I want to share something about Yokai Swap. As I know, as I know, so far there will be some basic ERC20 token like USDT or USDC, a spiral token to Nervos, and also there will be our CKB and the DCKB and the other stablecoin. As Dai, it will be called Thai, and because the Thai is named from Thai mountain. It is we will say as stable as Thai mountain. It is Chinese. It is from the Chinese war, and yeah. So it is a stable coin as one MakerDAO do, and we will also have DCKB. DCKB is a liquidable CKB when you deposit your CKB into Nervos DAO, and you could mint DCKB, and DCKB is usable in the Yokai Swap too. So that I think we also could try to compose such two beta versions product on our testnet right now, and there would be a governance token called Yoke for Yokai Swap. This is the best basic token we could be found on our Yokai Swap at first, and I believe there will be more and more assets from different chain when our bridge become more and more complete. This is what I want to share.
I think it's a lot of great insights, and it's probably the only place that people could get it. So yeah, amazing news, and I hope our audience listens to what you just said and just tries Yokai Swap themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just take a moment. We should probably always do this. Just very quickly introduce ourselves. So I'm Eric, and I'm from the DevRel team at Nervos.
I'm Daniel. I'm also from the DevRel team.
And I'm Jordan, and I'm from DevRel as well.
Hey, and I'm Taylor, and I'm on the and I'm on the business development side of things.
Yeah, sorry, forgot to introduce myself. This is Will. I come from marketing team. Yeah, but I like to call myself Nervos Advocate. Yeah, because it is more close to community. I like it.
Okay, so I guess we should head up the news here. And one of the biggest ones for me this week, and I think everyone else, is El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender. And that, has that resulted in, or we've seen a 10% drop here in Bitcoin, or pretty close to it. And I don't know if people have been watching the news around this, but so this is only the news that we see, so it's hard to judge, whether it is. But it seemed to be a certain amount of protests against Bitcoin being adopted, and then a certain amount of people, of course, being happy that it's been adopted as a legal tender. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it's fantastic overall. I mean, there's definitely some criticisms of it, like they were, I guess, using centralized exchanges, and their application is under the control of the government, and those are definitely negatives. Those are things that go against the entire movement in general. But at this point in time, it's kind of a necessary step. I mean, we look at Bitcoin, the fees are so high that it doesn't really make sense for most people, especially in third world nations. And then you take a look at something like Lightning Network, and it simply isn't there. It's not the product that we really hoped it would be. So them operating off of a centralized application or something is absolutely, in my mind, a necessary step. And they're really the pioneers here, so I can't really fault them for taking these steps that are necessary for it to actually work.
Yeah, I like the idea of the experiment, right? And being able to try out different like alternative payment methods. I'd be really curious to see how many people are actually using it, outside of like maybe Bitcoin people going to El Salvador to try it out, right? Like I would like to see if there's any like native adoption, right? Not maybe like foreign interest coming in and using it for the novelty of it. So yeah, I don't know, like maybe because it's centralized, we'll have better numbers on that, or more, or maybe even less insight into usage. But I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I suspect that the numbers are not going to be great at first, but that they're going to pick up. And the reason for that is they noted a whole bunch of problems they've been having, capacity problems. They had to shut down their servers to do an emergency upgrade at one point. I mean, these are growing pains the way I see it. When you have your servers get overloaded, that's a good thing. I mean, it's not the ideal scenario, of course, but that's a good thing. It shows that people actually got out there and they started using this application. So, I mean, over time, we expect that these problems will go away. I mean, this is something brand new. I don't think that they really deserved the criticism that they were receiving for all of that. It's going to go through. The people there, I believe they received something like $30 each, every citizen or something, for registering on that. You got to remember, that's a little bit more money to them down there. So that's kind of a significant amount. And if the price of cryptocurrency markets and Bitcoin rises, they may end up with having even more money there available. And I think the answer to, are they going to use it? Yeah, they're absolutely going to use it, at the very least, to get that money off of there. And if they see it rising, they're probably going to be a little bit more inclined to hold it longer. So, I mean, to the El Salvador people, I think you were looking at probably the first case of widespread adoption in a nation. I kind of doubt that it's just going to vanish and disappear. They're really going for it here.
So that sort of leads us into our next topic. Is maybe you also have something on this, is Ukraine. So Parliament passes law to legalize cryptocurrency in Ukraine. Do you know anything about that, Jordan?
No, actually, I'm not too up to date on that one. I actually just saw that headline.
Yeah, I haven't followed the details of it yet, so I'm not sure what that actually means for people in the Ukraine.
I think in general.
Well, here, go ahead, Daniel.
So in general, I think there are some like interesting. I think crypto is, don't say popular, but yeah, there's definitely a hub for like of developers, of blockchain developers in Ukraine, especially I'm sure in Kiev. My friend personally, who was living in US, has now moved to Kiev to work on his Polkadot startup. So definitely there were some people using crypto in Ukraine and operating their businesses. So in Ukraine, you have this specific political system where some people complain there's like oligarchy. So you have like very rich people controlling political system. So I'm not sure, but it probably touches this in some way. But in the Eastern Europe, there's also this connotation that cryptocurrency is always linked with some frauds, because you have, I don't know, the police doesn't work as well, etc., etc. So I think it's good for Ukraine. I think they're good. They have like the country that needs to. I think the innovation is the only way they can grow as a country, because they had a crisis recently, obviously connected to the war. So if you are like a developing country, the innovation is the way forward, the best way forward how you can go. So adopting cryptocurrency is good for them. I think they also hope that they will have more investments coming. It's kind of similar situation to El Salvador, where the president of El Salvador also thinks there will be more investment in his country.
Yeah, so my understanding is just, and it's very simplistic, is that crypto companies were essentially operating in a gray space in the Ukraine, and by legalizing cryptocurrency in the Ukraine, they've like paved a path forward for crypto businesses to register legally and run their businesses legally, and therefore have some protection under the law, and not need to be worried about doing something that's illegal and not knowing whether that's going to happen or not. So in that same vein, it says here, I just checked online, the country doesn't have a state register of data centers used for crypto mining yet. Thus, many specialists work in shadow or move abroad to avoid raids. So while crypto businesses and cryptocurrency is legalized there, as far as actual crypto mining goes, it's still a gray area.
Yeah, with the politics of Ukraine, sorry, Will, just one last thing. Yeah, so politics of Ukraine, I think, is also highly influenced by US, obviously because US is supporting Ukraine politically in the war. So I wonder how this US influence will affect Ukraine cryptocurrency stand in the long term. Go on, Will.
Yeah, I also want to introduce some situation happening in Taiwan. Yeah, because I come from Taiwan and based on Taiwan here, and I think the politics in Taiwan is also very flexible, and what the government try to do is only try to prevent somebody use crypto to do something like money laundering. Yeah, but I think for the other things like the like a regulation, I think here is very loose, and there are a lot of gray space to grow up for crypto industry. Yeah, like here from last year, there are a lot of new DeFi project emerge, including like Cream or like Perpetual Protocol or like the Full Combo and like Hakka Finance, and there are also some KOL uh, usually try to traveling in Taiwan last year because uh, most of time the coffee here is still in control, and the people could uh, go to anywhere very friendly in Taiwan. So as I know, like some guys from Mechanism Capital or guys from Dragonfly, and like people pleaser, yeah, they are usually live in Taiwan uh, from last year to this year. Yeah, yeah. So I think it is very interesting because and Daniel say, it's uh, crypto bring a lot of opportunity to some small country or small area with very flexible politic. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think let's see. I I believe there will be more and more innovation from such kind of place. Yeah.
Okay, so moving forward with that topic of regulation, I think everyone's seen in the news who's been following crypto at all is this whole legal shenanigans happening with Coinbase. So, if you're not familiar with this news, the SEC, the Security Exchange Commissions in the US, is planning to move forward with a lawsuit against Coinbase, which is one of the biggest exchanges in the US. And Coinbase is sort of well known for essentially following the letter of the law as well as they can within the US. They've tried to follow every regulation that they can. And SEC is saying their new product called Lend, which I believe has a 5% return. So you can lend out use your crypto as collateral. You can borrow, what is it, USDC? Or it's not USDT, right? USDC against that. And they're saying that this is a securities and that it falls under the SEC's prerogative. And therefore, they are breaking the law. And Coinbase's response has been, what law? There's no law essentially around this. And we would love to hear the law if there is one, and the SEC has not provided one.
Yeah, I think that the problem here is is how SEC operates, and that there's too much things in writing. So it's more like going from case to case and just hitting the players that stand out. So everyone, is kept in line. I would expect more like transparency here for the whole industry, because yeah, if you don't have a clear guidelines, it's hard to work in a business ecosystem.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Coinbase is they're trying to go above and beyond to follow all the US laws that they want to follow these laws. But if there are no laws that are clearly written, then they've got to push forward in sort of a gray space. And the crazy thing is, I mean, this idea of collateralizing your crypto is not exactly a new idea. Coinbase is not at all, the first person to do this. And in fact, they're probably quite behind the curve, right? And yet they're the ones getting nailed for this, despite them trying to follow all the rules.
But there's also a case. I mean, there was also some investigation into Uniswap V3, I think. So yeah. So for Coinbase, like who tried to? I think Luis, you want to say something?
No, I think between the Coinbase one and the Uniswap one, I really do think the Uniswap investigation feels a bit more interesting because it feels like Uniswap is ahead of the curve, right? And I think like it's gonna set some precedent on like how the government approaches protocols, right? Like, is it enough for you to put up like, I guess, like, where does the responsibility of like a foundation end and start, right? Like, if you put something forth into the world that is quote unquote like unstoppable now because it's decentralized, they're like the keys over the contract are burned or whatever it may be, right? um like, is it enough to put something into the world and wash your hands and continue contributing to it via a foundation, or are they going to be held responsible for the product that they kind of like launched in the first place, right? It feels like a different conversation.
Andrew, I see you there listening, buddy. Click on to join us as a speaker because I know you've got something to say. I mean, you're our DeFi guy here. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
By the way, Taylor, it's good to have you. I'm trying to replace your tweet pinning skills, but I'm not doing great.
No, that was perfect. That was actually the one I was going to pin. So yeah, you beat me to it.
Well, honestly, I'm sort of just waiting for the conversation to get to NFTs because I feel like I've got some things to get off my chest about NFTs. And I was hoping today we could talk specifically about sports NFTs because this is definitely, and again, I know Andrew's listening, he's going to jump on the call here. Sports NFTs are really sort of taking off, right? Like art NFTs have been here for a while now. Sports NFTs are sort of where we're heading, I feel. And one of the things that came out of the news lately is that the NFL said that they're not going to allow teams to do any crypto advertisements or NFTs. So I believe this just applies to the teams itself until the NFL decides what they want to do as an organization. However, we see a lot of stars, sports stars, minting their own NFTs, and a lot of them are their own image or their own whatever else. And they're cashing out big time, right? They're making, millions and millions of dollars of selling their own NFTs. And just on my chest a little bit here about this idea of corporate America, whether it be Visa, which we talked about before, Vogue, sports stars, movie stars coming in and cashing out on NFTs and in a community that they're just piggybacking off of and making money from, where there's a ton of hard community work that's gone in by all kinds of people and it's getting bought out. I feel like there's a gentrification going on here of the culture, just like any other subculture, which once it starts to go mainstream. And I'm not sure there's anything to be done about that, though.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's some form of gentrification and buying crypto by very big traditional finance players. And I'm really interested in how the whole space will change, if it will change, because some major projects would be, for example, controlled by traditional players like big banks, etc.
Yeah, Eric, what was your question again? I just now got speaker access. Sorry. About the sports NFTs. I heard the first part of it.
I just wanted to rant here saying that, a lot of sports stars are minting their own NFTs and, making pretty big bucks out of that. And is this just another example of corporate buyout and gentrification of this NFT community by people with tons of money just making more money?
Yeah, but also the flip side of that is that college athletes who have never been able to get paid now are actually able to mint their NFTs and kind of their rookie cards. So instead of the colleges taking full advantage, especially in the U.S. market, I'm talking about, they've never actually been able to profit from their likeness, is what they call it. So now there's the name and likeness. They're able to profit through that, and one big mechanism through that is NFTs. And I think it's going to really pick up, where it gives people imagine if you were to meet, a Roger Federer or Tiger Woods, somebody famous when they were in college, but they didn't have the funding to get through college and actually, not work two jobs and be an athlete. I think it's enabling a lot of people, opening financial doors that weren't open before, and also opening investment doors for, people to help fund these people through NFTs. So that's the flip side,
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I think that you'll probably see a little bit of backlash from athletes, especially in the NFL, that are prohibited from engaging in NFT related activities when there's already a lot of athletes that have kind of jumped into the NFT space, especially when now college athletes have the ability to do so. So I think it'll be kind of interesting to see how it plays out. I obviously think it's a pretty poor move on the NFL's part, but I think there's a lot of maybe traditional money in the NFL, and this poses a threat. I think is that's the way that I read this.
Yeah, what happens if people mint NFTs kind of for these players, and how is that going to play out? I mean, obviously at some point the off ramp will have to be KYC'd on who it is, but yeah, I don't know. I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's sort of a conversation I actually had a little earlier today. Was like, if we think back to NFTs more like traditional playing cards, right? I mean, the only value in the playing card, actual value is, the paper that is printed on. We give it its intrinsic value by our, not only scarcity and things like this, but our desire to trade them, to hold them, to show them off, and do all these things, right? It's the community that gives it value.
Well,
so
the nostalgia
if you have like an off-brand NFL hockey card in the 90s that someone just like printed off from random, it wouldn't have any value despite the fact of whose picture it has on it, right? But if you have the real NFL card or NHL, then it's got more value just based on that.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the other fact of it is like the nostalgia is another massive selling component of sports cards. So it's like almost if you own the entire, say you're a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, and you want to own every single NFT of every player on a championship winning year, like there could be some value there for like the players like aren't famous. But were you saying that if it wasn't related to an actual brand, like if it wasn't a Topps card, if it was just like an actual picture of somebody? Is that what you were saying there?
Yeah, both. I was just saying that the community, I think, is what gives it a lot of value, right? If no one's going to buy it, no one wants it. If you got no one to show or share with, it has no value. A, and then B is, yeah, if it's just like some off-brand.
Yeah, like a social club. Yeah, it's basically like a social club, and just like collectors in general. Like I've actually never been a collector. I really frankly don't understand collectors too much. I don't know if it's sentimental based, because a lot of collectors I know say that they would never part with their collections, like for any amount of money, so that kind of to me kind of baffles me. But what do you think about that?
It's you're purchasing entry into the community, into the club. You're on the inside when you own your baseball cards or your hockey cards. You're one of them, right? And I see that with NFTs as well, right? I think this is something we've discussed. If you've got your whatever collection of NFT and you've got one, maybe it's your profile picture and you relate to other people who have it. It's sort of your secret handshake, as it were. So again, for me, it really comes back down to NFTs and community.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it and don't understand it at the same time. Like, I'm not the biggest collector of anything, but when you start dealing with things like NFTs, and you start looking at them, you actually have to take that first step and actually make your purchase or get an NFT. And then I think there's something kind of inherent just in human nature to actually want to collect more of them. I mean, so there is something there. But what I think is missing still just in the industry as a whole right now is there isn't any real consolidation on what an NFT actually represents. And that's still something that I think really needs to happen. And I believe that it will change over time, what it means, and it'll probably have much more meaning down the line. Is what I'm getting at. Is right now you're basically just buying images that have effectively been signed by somebody. You're saying that this is basically an autographed version, but down the line they'll probably have much more meaning. They may actually have rights associated with them, which could have business implications of profitability for more profit when you're buying things down the line or creating your own products. So just like the industry's just been saying, this is just the beginning, and we have a very long way to go. While I'm hopeful for a lot of the things in the future. I do kind of believe that right now there's a large bubble in the space, and unfortunately, many of the NFTs out there are probably going to lose a lot of value, but a small few will probably gain it and be serious collector's items down the line, worth many millions more than they are today.
Yeah, I think the key to that is only a few, though, like the ones that make it out, especially the ones that are just JPEGs, like the utility ones will, that's a massively evolving space where, again, I've heard everything where NFTs can be imported and exported out of a video game as items, like that's pretty revolutionary and, and then you've got, NFTs that are being issued as magazines. Like you could have a first edition magazine of like the news of what's happening in the NFT space. And, imagine kind of going back, 20, 30 years from now, being able to go back and like, I have a first edition, NFT magazine, like that would be huge.
We got Tanner in the audience, and I invited him to speak. I was chatting with him yesterday because like maybe like I don't know, like 8 months ago, 10 months ago, we were talking about NFTs, and he described something very similar to loot. Right? I know we talked about loot last week, but if he wants to hop on stage and chat a little bit about what we were talking about, I'll give like a quick overview. He was describing, like how NFTs more or less were like limited by the context that they were shown in. So like that sounds a bit abstract, but like let's say like an NFT was just meant to describe like certain attributes or certain features, right? But there wasn't any like creative extension of that. That is almost like kind of liberating to the NFT, because what you have is like you give creative license to render it however you see fit, right? And that's exactly what like loot is. But at the moment, like I think that the way the account system is kind of like set up is like it doesn't really allow for like that freedom to like really like, or that like expression to really tie back into like the original NFT, right? So like let's say we had like three attributes: red, gold, and green. And like in like a 3D context, that is expressed like of course in 3 dimensions, right? But if you want to express it like in another style, like let's say like 2D flat, 2D animation, right? Like those would be two separate NFTs that wouldn't like like they would have like derivative value like tied into them, and like the value would be picked up by like the originating NFT, but it wouldn't like be directly tied to it, right? Like it would be in a separate contract. And I think that that's probably like where loot kind of like fails to reach its like true value potential. And like a NFT that like Tanner was describing like could tap into that like uh that value through like creative expression, right? As is extended out to like different contexts. I'm not sure if that like makes a lot of sense, but I do think that there's value in like being, or there's like a missing kind of like feature in NFTs where you can capture some of the derivative value that comes when it's like expressed differently. He joined. Did I capture that right, Tanner?
Yeah, I think that I'll give a concrete example.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second? Do you mind introducing yourself to everyone just very briefly, and then I think it will help to contextualize things a bit.
Yeah, my name's Tanner. I used to work at Nervos. I work on a project called I Am now. And so, we do some things with NFTs. So the example is basically, imagine, so first of all, I think that NFTs, I take them a bit literally, and when I think of them as like the digital analog of physical goods, the same way that cryptocurrency can be considered the digital analog of cash for the first time, right? Because you don't have to rely on intermediaries to prevent things like double spending, right? For physical goods, imagine, for example, you have a car, you buy a new car, and then something in it breaks, so you have to replace a part, right? And then say you have to replace all the doors and then the wheels over time, right? Then repaint it. At what point does it stop being the car that you bought, right? and that's like this problem of identity through time. NFTs, as the digital analog of physical goods, can't really capture that sort of that gray area, right? If I own my car, I should be able to do certain things to it, right? I should be able to paint it whatever I want. I should be able to replace parts of it. But there are certain things I can't do to it, right? Due to the laws of physics. Like I can't magically transform my car into like a slice of cake, right? That makes no sense. The analog to the laws of physics in a blockchain are, of course, the laws of the underlying chain, the consensus rules, as well as whatever you encode in the logic. So imagine I have a CryptoKitty. I buy a CryptoKitty. All of its sort of laws of physics are encoded into the contract. And now, what can I do with it without making it no longer a CryptoKitty, right? And turns out with many NFTs, no matter how sophisticated, those have to be, what you can do with it is up to the developer who created the contract ahead of time, right? They had to think of it. They had to think of it beforehand. If you want to do something new, like put a hat on your CryptoKitty, you have to either write a new smart contract and transfer ownership and create like a wrap token. Of course, other platforms, marketplaces, whatever, dApps that support the CryptoKitty don't necessarily support this wrapped CryptoKitty, right? And that's the problem with quote unquote composability in the smart contract space, is that, yeah, sure, you can innovate and compose new things at the expense of like adoption. You have to basically like build a new platform to do anything, right? You shouldn't need a new platform to put a hat on your CryptoKitty, and putting a hat on your CryptoKitty shouldn't remove its CryptoKitty-ness, right? It shouldn't make it no longer a CryptoKitty, but it's very cut and dry in the NFT space. So when I talk about like the ability to do these additional things to your NFT because you own it, just like a physical good, it's about enabling people to explore those gray areas. I purchased an NFT from some creator. There are certain things I can do to it, even the ones that the creator didn't think of beforehand. But there are certain things I absolutely shouldn't do to it, right? Like I shouldn't be able to create 5 copies, maybe, right? Make clones, because that undermines like the scarcity and the value, right? The whole idea is that even though the content, like the JPEG, is easily downloadable, the entry in the ledgers is not, you can't replicate that, right? So what kinds of attributes can we add later on without undermining sort of the laws of physics, so to speak, of the NFT? And that's why I really like Loot, because they kind of focus on that, some of those emergent properties, kind of taking elemental building blocks and enabling a world to be built, but not defining all the rules of that world ahead of time. So that's why, yeah, Loot was similar to some of the things we're doing at IAM, where you can basically like create new rules, new properties, and instead of doing it by creating new smart contracts and like creating wrap tokens, which is how composability works in traditional smart contracts, is you basically wrap things and transfer ownership, delegate ownership to other smart contracts. Instead, you can just install like rule sets into your tokens, which is also cool because like if you wanted to auction your NFT on like 10 different places in smart contracts, like it really depends on either all of those platforms interacting through API calls off-chain, or all sharing information through different contracts. But instead, why don't you could just like, with like these more property-based NFTs, like the ones we're working on at IAM, you just install a marketplace into your NFT. And so now you can list it anywhere. And all of those bids across all these different like UIs or dApps are aggregated at once, which happens to be important for price discovery, right? if you have 10 times the amount of bids, easily viewable by every bidder, then that's a better price discovery mechanism, right? So it's just one example of kind of those gray areas that we're trying to flesh out and enable so that people can do whatever they want with the digital goods that they own, just like you can with physical goods, borrowing like fundamental laws of physics, right? Like I should be able to smash my laptop if I want to. If I probably wouldn't. The fact is I could with my physical laptop. I should be able to do similar things to my NFTs as digital goods, right? So yeah. That was the long story short that then became long again.
Thank you for sharing. That's really interesting. When you were talking about, the very first thing that came to my mind, I don't know if anyone else here is old enough or nerdy enough. Did any of you guys play Moos or Muds? I mean, they're not really so popular these days now that we have graphics. But for people who are not aware of what a Moo or a Mud is, it was essentially a multi-user chat room that allowed a certain amount of object-oriented programming in it. And it typically had a list of verbs that one could interact with. So for example, you could type something like create box, box is green, box is large. And to me, in some ways, it was almost like this, the idea of loot is a very like early version of creating an object and essentially giving it some properties, but it was not really well defined about how those properties would be used. And it would be up to other people playing the Moo or the Mud with you online to type something like look at item, and it might say item is box. And how that was actually implemented was up to the players, because there weren't such strict rules in Moos or Muds. You could basically tell your character to do anything, but it allowed for this very broad use of what I would consider to be almost like a prototypical, if that's the correct word, NFT.
So it was a multiplayer game. I just quickly Googled it.
Yeah, it's... Andrew, do you got something to say?
No, go ahead. I'll jump in right after.
Yeah, it's it really hailed back to the days of like very early internet, or with like dial-up on like BBSs and things like that. And so it was all text-based, right, rather than graphical, because of that it just wasn't there yet. And it was essentially like an RPG without a lot of hard rules, and there was some amount of basic programming that various users could do. You could say like create room is this big, has these objects in it, whatever else. But it essentially, like loot, it had very few descriptors, which then could be built off of on however people imagined it to be. And here the focus was obviously on people interacting with each other in some sort of environment, but these items played a very significant role in that.
Yeah, interesting. So are you talking about earlier? We were talking about kind of like modular, almost like modular development of NFTs. Am I understanding that right? You were a little bit over my head, but.
So, I mean, this was far before. I mean, this has happened, pre-internet or very early internet. So there was no concept of NFTs. However, I feel like a lot of the same concepts still hold true. You have an item, you could give it certain properties. The item was essentially unique. You could give it to another player who was a real person and had a digital identity, and their digital identity would then have the item, right? So there's I believe like a lot of parallels here between it. And of course you could devalue your item by creating a ton of them and passing them out, and then they wouldn't be worth anything. But the worth of the item essentially was only the value that we placed on it.
Interesting. Reminds me of like a video game I used to play called Diablo 2. There's like a currency. It was a ring in the game, and like the ring had like no value because nobody actually used it, but it became like the Bitcoin of the video game. Pretty crazy. People used to sell them online.
Dude, I remember that. Yep.
The Stone of Jordan. Still remember.
Great game.
Then you had a story of Diablo 3 auction house.
Yeah,
That was real bad. That was an epic fail, but yeah.
Absolutely epic fail. But,
okay. So just to end with, maybe let's talk for a while about the hackathon, because we are starting tomorrow the second part of the hackathon, and the first part we had, I don't know, 1,600 participants. So for example, we announced that the theme is DeFi, but if you could, do you have some more information, Eric, for example, about it?
Yeah, so our part one hackathon, I think, had 1,600 participants, and I think they performed, and I'm trying to remember this correctly, I think it was 3,400 bounties they completed. So, I mean, that was well above and beyond, I think, what everyone expected. And a big shout out and thanks to both you, Daniel, and Jordan, for you guys did like a huge amount of work on that along with everyone else. So that was not me. I just came in for all the glory. But part two is now starting in one day, and the theme is DeFi. So basically, from a scoring perspective, you can get a total of 30 points, and 5 of those points are specifically related to the theme. So if you don't go to the theme at all, you can get 0, so you're missing those 5 extra points. If you're completely on theme, you've got 5 extra points to start off. So that's it. So people could still do really well if they didn't follow the theme at all, but it's going to give you a big head start. And I think that's really what the judges are going to be looking for, is DeFi projects. So if you want to win or you want to come on the top few, I would suggest definitely sticking with DeFi. The hackathon is going to go on for, I believe, 3 weeks. We will have workshops that are going to stream online on YouTube, on our Nervos YouTube channel. And Daniel here has got some talks. Jordan's got some talks. I'm going to give one talk, and it will happen every Sunday and Wednesday at 5 p.m. UTC. So that is 6 o'clock in London. And actually, I think that's 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and that would be 1 o'clock a.m. here in China. So those are free for anyone to come by and come check out. And don't forget to come to our Discord and just hang out. We're going to probably do some social things and play some online games together. We're going to be giving out some of the merch for the first time, so you can come and get a chance to win some Nervos merch that's brand new. We're going to be giving out some free DOS accounts. So if you don't know what a DOS account is, you want one, they're cool, come by, and then you can figure out what they are. So if you want to learn more about our hackathon, or you just want to follow the links, you can go to startwithnervos.com, all one word, of course, lower cases, so startwithnervos.com, and you can find all of the links there. So that's it for me.
Is the requirement that things have to be built on the layer 2 Polyjuice Godwoken setup, or can it be done directly with
yeah, people are welcome to use layer 1 if they want to give it a go, but certainly there'll be less support available for that, just because it's in a much earlier state than where we are with layer 2. So I would certainly encourage people, if they're new and they want to get things done in 3 weeks, to go with layer 2. So if you guys are listening and you're not familiar with this current layer 2, it's an EVM compatible layer 2, which means you can use Solidity contracts. And Daniel and Jordan have set up a bunch of different tools, and there's a repository there with React app. Is that correct, Daniel? It's JavaScript React front end that you can go ahead and start using as well, so you don't have to completely start. Okay, so we got just a few minutes left. Is there any questions? Because I think I saw someone raise their hand, maybe.
I don't think we have a time for questions, so maybe we can just cover another topic very quickly.
Hey Tanner, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I see one hand going crazy there. Frenzo, let's do it, guys. Let's do it. We can stick around for a few extra minutes, and no one's gonna. I don't know if our host can promote someone to speak here.
Hey guys, thank you very much for this presentation and this community call. I think that it's important that all the community is feeling I would say, engaged with the speakers. I think that is the question that many people are asking themselves. You talk about Coinbase, about the problematic that they are facing currently in the US. I was wondering how far is the process of listing CKB on Coinbase at the moment? Thank you very much.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not something that we can comment on. So that's up to, essentially it's up to a different department, and it's up for them to sort of release that kind of information. So sorry, I wish I had more information for you, but that's just where we are.
Yeah, no problem at all. And the second question that I had is that I've seen that a lot of documentation provided by the Nervos team is written in Chinese. I've seen as well that you are giving some bounty program for the people that are translating the Chinese reports into English reports and other languages. Did you have a lot of candidates to make all this translation to make sure that everybody is up to date, at least in English?
Yeah, so it's a combination of us writing our own documentation as it comes up and as we have time. So there's only so much bandwidth that we have, and I think we could write documentation forever. There is bounties for, I believe, partner projects, so things that are built on us, our system, and then they're offering their own bounties to bring over their documentations, because some of those teams, not all of them, are based in China or have Chinese developers, and therefore they're sort of offering their own bounties. So I can't speak to how many people have decided to take them up on the offer, because that's not necessarily us directly.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for these answers, and again, thank you very much for the call. I guess see you next week on the next one.
Yeah, thanks for asking and coming for sure. So I think that's it for us this week. I'm going to let Luis here close us off.
I just kind of wanted to piggyback off the hackathon overview that you gave. I was on a call with Tanner yesterday, and he showed me a really awesome tool to like bootstrap a dev environment. It's called Trampoline, and I'm wondering, if you could tell us a little bit about Trampoline really quickly, but also like and ask if you could like share it with or open it up for use ahead of the hackathon. I think it'll be a really good tool to get people started with a dev environment in like less than 8 minutes.
Yeah. So first, saying a little about Trampoline. Basically, it's we've been building on Nervos for a while now, many hundreds of hours of debugging, and there were many pain points along the ways. So we started building this internal tool to basically quickly develop applications without a lot of hassle, without a lot of configuration stuff. And we realized probably other people would find it useful as well. So we kind of been past few weeks turning it into a tool that we plan to open source. You get a complete developer environment. You do Trampoline, create app. You get a fully configured, React application integrated with the PW SDK and things like that, indexers, index clients and stuff. And it takes, when I showed you yesterday, it takes about 8 minutes to do everything. We containerize everything now, so it takes about 2 minutes to go from fresh install to a fully running application and developer environment. And I can open up a kind of pre-release version of it in the next couple days, with some docs for people to try in the hackathon if they want to. Having said that, the Trampoline's meant for layer 1. So it's not supporting things like polyjuicing Godwoken. And I don't really know the polyjuicing Godwoken stuff that well, because I haven't used it. So that's the overview.
Right on. Thank you, man. So if you all want to continue the conversation, ask any more questions, feel free to join our Discord or our Telegram, and we'll talk to you all next week. Same time, same day.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Franzu. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. I will see you next week.